Hi everyone, I'm Rincey and this is Rincey Reads. Today I'm going to be talking about Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. I'm going to start off by saying that for the majority of this video I'm going to avoid talking about spoilers, but there is going to be a certain part where I do talk a little bit about spoilery things. So I will warn you guys before that happens, so that way if you don't want to be spoiled at all, if you haven't read the play yet or haven't seen the play yet, you don't have to worry about being spoiled in this video up until a certain point. So I will give you guys a heads up when that's going to occur and you guys can close out of the video at that point. This is a play that's getting pretty divisive reactions. I'm just going to talk about my own experience with this play and my opinions on it, and this doesn't in any way negate anyone else's opinion. Obviously that goes for like any opinion that I give, because again, they're all opinions. So I got this book from the library, hence why I'm not holding it up right now. I figured that was probably my best bet with reading this book, because going into it I had a very strong feeling that this wasn't going to be a book that I wanted to own, and the worst case scenario would be that I get it from the library and then I buy it again later. I could tell that I wasn't going to really feel super enthralled about buying a copy of this play. First of all, it was a play and I knew that going into it, so I knew that it was going to be a different experience. But also just everything surrounding it, like it felt really rushed because J.K. Rowling didn't really write it herself, and even just like the artwork and everything around it just felt a little bit different than the original Harry Potters had felt. And so going into it, I knew I wasn't going to buy it. Prior to reading it myself, I was paying attention to how people were reacting to the book, and like I said, it was pretty divisive. Some people like absolutely loved it, and some people, specifically people whose tastes I tend to align with more, were really hating it. And that actually made me really curious to read it as well, because I wanted to know why they hated it so much and what was pissing them off. So I went into this with pretty low expectations, which might be why I didn't really hate it. Now I do have to say that my Harry Potter sort of like knowledge and love and adoration is relatively limited compared to a lot of other fans. I mean, I've read the books, I love the books, I've read them multiple times, but it's been a while since I've read them. I'm not super active in like the fandom or anything like that. The older I get and the farther away I get from those movie releases, and especially from the last book release, the less and less I feel like super attached to that fandom. I still like care about these characters a lot, and I was very interested to see just what the story was going to be, but I didn't expect this book to be Harry Potter 8. I never expected that at any point, and so I think again, because I had such low expectations going into it, it didn't really bother me that much. I will also say that I spoiled myself on a lot of the major sort of quote-unquote twists in the play. Again, I saw people having very strong reactions to this book, and part of me wanted to know just what was pissing people off so much, because I could see everyone like vaguely hinting to things, and so I just googled it and I found, I think it was like on Bustle or something, there was some article that just listed all of the major spoilers in the story, and obviously that probably played a part in my experience as well. I'll never really know if while I was reading the play, if I didn't have those spoilers in mind, if I would have had a different reaction, but I think I really like tempered myself down quite a bit to be able to handle this play and not hate it a whole lot. In my opinion, this play is pretty equivalent to what the movies are like. A lot of people have been saying that this play just felt kind of like hollow, there isn't really much depth to it, all of these things, and yeah, that's to be expected because it is a play. And to me, again, it felt a lot like what the movies are like. The movies, in comparison to the novels, are obviously missing a lot of really great details and plot lines and just character developments that really made me love the Harry Potter books. I don't love the movies that much. Like, I think they're fine and I think they're fun, and it's an easy way to experience the world without having to spend hours reading the book, and it's really nice to have that visual and things like that. But to me, the movies don't mean that much. It's more the books that mean a lot to me, and the movies feel like a hollow incarnation of the Harry Potter world still. The only thing going for it is the fact that it is so visual. But I wonder if all of us were given like the Harry Potter screenplays for the movies, if we wouldn't have the exact same reaction that we're having to the Cursed Child. Like, I feel like this is a thing that you just need to see it to be able to enjoy it. I mean, that seems to be what a lot of people who have the privilege of seeing the play are saying. Like, on stage it's amazing, and the things that they're able to do are just insane and really bring you into the world, and the way the actors are acting out the play is really help temper the cheesy dialogue, and they help bring more like emotional weight to all of these scenes that might not be conveyed very well within the actual script, which again makes sense because that's the job of actors and that's what you're supposed to do with screenplays and things like that. Another criticism that I've seen for a lot of people is the idea that these characters don't feel like the characters that we loved in Harry Potter. Harry and Hermione and Ron feel really different than they do in the novels. I can understand that complaint, and I would agree with that idea that the characters do feel really different, but when I was reading this I felt like they had just grown up, and when you grow up you do change. Like, I'm pretty sure someone who knew me when I was 16, 17 years old, if they had no like interaction with me between that point in time and now when I'm turning 30, they would probably think I am not quite the same as I was when I was younger. Obviously there are certain aspects of personalities that stay intact, but we all grow up and we all change, and who knows what has happened over the past like 15, 20 years for Harry, Hermione, and Ron while they were growing up and raising their kids. We see a quick glimpse of it in the epilogue of book 7, but there is no way to really tell like what has happened, and unfortunately the play doesn't have the opportunity to explore that. I think it would have been really interesting to see sort of how they got to where they are, but there really is no time for that in a play. I also did really like the two main characters a lot. I think that those two characters are really interesting, and I would totally read a series of stories about their friendship and about their time at Hogwarts. One of the frustrations that I had with this play is the fact that you see them sort of growing up, like you see quick glimpses of them at the beginning of every school year up until when the main story sort of takes off, and I kind of just wish we got those years fleshed out the way we did for the other characters. So if you're someone who hasn't read the plays yet, would I recommend it to you? I mean, read it if you're curious, but I don't think that this should be like required reading like the other Harry Potter books are. If you're interested, read them. If you're not interested, I think you're fine not reading them. I don't think like your world is going to be changed. Like, I don't feel like my world was necessarily changed because I read this play. It really just feels like Jack Thorne was given this world to sort of play with, and like a lot of people in the fandom do, that he sort of had fun imagining and creating these potential scenarios for these characters to go through. So yeah, in the end, I'm just going to say that if you're interested, read the play, but go in with relatively low expectations. Don't expect the Harry Potter books. Maybe expect the Harry Potter movies instead. But you do have to remember that this is a play, it is a script. It's not going to have everything fleshed out the way that we loved. I think part of what made Harry Potter so special was J.K. Rowling's writing and descriptions. Like, I still believe that she is just such an amazing writer. It's why I love the Robert Galbraith books too. And you can definitely tell that this was written by a completely different person. So I mean, just go into it knowing that, and then I think that you'll have a slightly more enjoyable experience with this than a lot of people have had. So yeah, now I'm going to talk really briefly about some of the more spoilery parts of it. This video is already longer than I wanted it to be, but so I will just go through that really quickly. So if you haven't read the play or seen the play yet and you don't want to be spoiled, close out now. So yeah, there are a couple of plot points that I want to talk about. First of all, the whole like time travel thing. I don't like time travel stories, like, period. There's nothing about them I ever enjoy. I can't think of a single time travel related plot point that I've ever liked in any story ever. Part of it is because it always just seems completely contrived. Part of it is because it gets really confusing. There were certain points where I couldn't really remember which timeline we were in, and part of it is because, especially in this play, all of the timeline stuff, it didn't feel worth it. It just felt like it was Jack Thorne being like, hey, let's just see what would happen if Cedric lived and all of this stuff, and none of it had any real consequence to it. They would always go back and sort of reset everything so that it would go back to quote unquote normal again. So it was sort of like, what is the point of exploring all these different possibilities outside of just exploring them, I guess? But it didn't really do a whole lot to engage me in the Harry Potter universe. I would much rather do sort of like a deep dive into these characters and explore their sort of home life than to explore all of these potentials that are never actually going to become true. The second thing I want to talk about is the whole Cedric Diggory storyline. A lot of people were really upset that there is this one timeline where Cedric Diggory becomes a Death Eater, which I don't understand why people were very upset about. I don't want to be dismissive again of other people's opinions, so if you can explain down below why that was so upsetting. I mean, I guess again, I was spoiled about this, but I was also spoiled that this was part of like this temporary timeline. It wasn't a real thing. So I felt like there was no reason to be upset because it never really happened. Like, it didn't actually happen. It's only because this one thing was changed and then they changed it again, so it never actually happened. Like I said, all of the timeline hopping just had no real consequences because it all just got reset back to A. And then the whole final thing, the biggest probably twist in this story, is the fact that Voldemort has this daughter, which is probably the part that I thought was the least believable in my opinion. Like, the idea of this man who supposedly had no conception of like love whatsoever conceiving a child, like, that by itself is just the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life. Like, based on everything that we've learned in Harry Potter about Voldemort, how he was neglected and how, you know, it was love that saved Harry and that made it possible for him to defeat Voldemort. The fact that that man was able to create a child, unless it was literally one of those situations where like Beatrix Potter stole his sperm or something. Like, honestly, I can't think of a possible situation where he would have a kid. So that is the one like major gripe I have with this play, because that storyline I just didn't want to deal with it. So yeah, those are my quick thoughts on the whole Harry Potter and the Cursed Child thing. There is like more Harry Potter content that's coming out. I think it's coming out in September. I can't remember exactly, but supposedly like all these different short stories are supposed to be coming out. Will I be reading them? Probably eventually, the same way I did with Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. But especially because these seem more along the lines of what I'm interested in. I'm more interested in exploring sort of like aspects of this world. There's a short story about McGonagall during the big fights when, you know, Harry Potter's parents were still alive and all this stuff. I don't know the terminology anymore, so forgive me for that. But the McGonagall story is in and of itself the only reason why I'm going to pick up one of these books. But yeah, I think like honestly this whole exploration of the world is really what I'm looking for, and if J.K. Rowling wants to write more stories like that, I am 100% here for that. If she wants to do any sort of like flashbacks into characters' history, I'm here for that. I feel like we're at a point where we just need to accept that the Harry Potter world is going to be added onto. It's going to have this sort of extended universe thing. If you don't listen to the Book Riot podcast, there was a special episode that Jeff O'Neill did with Jackson Bird, who is a part of the Harry Potter Alliance and has a YouTube channel and everything. So if you haven't listened to that, I highly recommend it. It's down below. There are spoilers in that as well, so, you know, be warned. A lot of what they said is very much true for my feelings as well, and they talk about how there's sort of like the Star Wars extended universe and a Star Trek extended universe, and how James Bond has different writers writing the story, and how these like really big series sort of, as the years go on, different people are going to be writing stories for them and different people are going to be expanding on them. We just happen to be living in this time where it's happening to Harry Potter, and so we just have to learn to sort of reckon with that however you want to reckon with it. There is no right or wrong way. You can either choose to just have the 7 books be canon and then ignore everything else, or you could choose to read everything that comes out about Harry Potter. Personally, I'll probably just be picking and choosing by whatever interests me, because that's how I am. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Overall, I didn't hate it, but it wasn't like the greatest thing ever either. But again, this is just my opinion, and I think I just went in with such low expectations that there was no way for it to really get any lower. So yeah, feel free to leave your comments down below. I know that a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this, and I've already watched a bunch of people's like videos and reactions to it and stuff like that, so I know that people are all over the spectrum, but feel free to leave a comment down below letting me know what you guys thought of it. So yeah, that's all I have for now, and thanks for watching.